The Indiana Fever are facing a silent implosion. Behind the scenes, a pattern is emerging. Valuable veterans like Sophie Cunningham are being pushed out over cap constraints, while high draft picks are traded away for short-term gambles. Cunningham, who quietly elevated both team performance and fan engagement, now appears to be on her way out. Not due to lack of talent, but because the organization may be prioritizing the wrong pieces. In the process,
if you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
they're risking the stability and success of their most important investment. Caitlin, the loss of Cunningham would be more than a roster shakeup. It would be a message that strategic foresight isn't driving the Fever's decisions. Cunningham's departure would drain both floor spacing and defensive structure, two pillars that make Clark's offensive brilliance possible. Off the court, the duo has amplified the franchise's $55 million social media value, attracting sponsors, fans, and attention at a historic scale. Letting that slip through in a bid for financial flexibility or younger and proven talent isn't just a bad move. It's potentially catastrophic. Caitlin Clark has been carrying the Indiana Fever spotlight, their social media engagement, and let's be honest, their entire franchise relevance since the moment she was drafted. But now, with Sophie Cunningham on the verge of being pushed out, the entire situation is unraveling faster than anyone expected. This isn't some petty locker room beef. This is a clear signal that the Fever organization is fumbling its moment. Cunningham's podcast comments didn't read like frustration. They read like confirmation. She's gone. And the worst part? It sounds like the team let it happen by. You don't lose a player like Cunningham because of performance. You lose her when you mismanage contracts, when your front office priorities don't line up with the product you're putting on the court. Sophie Cunningham shot 43% from three, played physical defense, and didn't need a headline to make an impact. She showed up. She filled gaps. She kept things moving. She let Clark be Clark. Now she's walking over a contract dispute. And Clark's camp? Reportedly furious. And they should be, because this isn't just a roster shuffle. This is about what kind of team the Fever are building or not building. It's about the message being sent to players, fans, and the entire league. If you're on the Fever and you're not the face of the franchise, your value seems negotiable, no matter how essential you are to the system's success. And when essential players are treated like replaceable parts, the system fails. Cunningham was one of the few veterans on this team who understood the stakes. She knew her job wasn't just about scoring or defense. It was about support. Clark is still developing. She's elite, yes, but she's new to the league. The pressure is astronomical. The expectations are unlike anything we've seen in years. And instead of giving her stability, the Fever are giving her turnover. They're letting veteran glue walk out the door for financial flexibility, while the actual flexibility she needs on the court is evaporating. Let's talk about that on-court impact. You lose someone shooting over 40% from three, and suddenly spacing collapses. Defenders don't have to play honest anymore. Help comes quicker. Passing lanes shrink. Your offense bogs down. Clark's vision is still elite, but now she's got less room to execute it. Cunningham wasn't just a shooter. She was a decoy, a safety valve, a presence that kept defenses stretched. Her absence creates a domino effect. Clark has to work harder for looks. The offense becomes more predictable, and the team's rhythm gets thrown off entirely. Then there's the defense. Cunningham brought grit, intensity, accountability. That edge matters, especially on a young team still trying to find its identity. You lose that, and who fills the gap? Not development projects who still haven't broken through. Not players with flashy contracts but no chemistry. You can't teach experience in 2 months, and you definitely can't replace it with potential. The front office seems convinced that juggling pieces will lead to a long-term breakthrough. But here's what they're not considering. The present matters too. You've got Caitlin Clark right now, and she's already bringing you record-breaking value. Your social media is worth $55 million, and that's largely because of the energy created by Clark and players like Cunningham. That's engagement. That's merchandise. That's broadcast pull. It's money. Letting Cunningham walk isn't just a tactical mistake, it's a brand mistake. And that's where the criticism starts to really sting. Because the Fever have already made some questionable choices when it comes to asset management. That 8th overall draft pick, gone. Traded away for short-term help that hasn't panned out. The front office has a pattern of making reactionary moves instead of strategic ones. And now, they're sacrificing long-term team cohesion for cap space and unproven alternatives. The debate about prioritizing Natasha Howard over Cunningham is another prime example. Howard brings size and interior presence, sure, but Cunningham's fit next to Clark was obvious. She complemented the backcourt, gave Clark space to operate, and played hard on both ends without taking touches away. Choosing one over the other should have been about system synergy, but it looked more like a salary cap numbers game, and not a very smart one. And what does this say to the rest of the roster? Players are watching. They're seeing how management handles veterans. They're seeing what loyalty gets you, or doesn't. You want to create a winning culture? Start by building trust. Right now, that trust is slipping. You also can't ignore what this means for fan engagement. Cunningham wasn't just a good player. She was marketable. She was part of the Fever's digital rise. She had personality. She connected. Now, with her exit, the team loses a major part of its off-court chemistry too. This is an entertainment business, and the Fever are actively shrinking their reach by letting key personalities walk away. It's not just Cunningham either. When you look at stagnation from younger players like KK Timpson, it points to a bigger problem: developmental infrastructure. You can't afford to lose vets like Cunningham and have your young players plateau. That's a system failure. You're not developing from within, and now you're cutting leadership from the top. And that brings us back to Clark. She's the centerpiece, the star, the generational talent. And she's walking into a team that, despite all the outside success, is crumbling internally. She's watching leadership leave. She's watching questionable priorities unfold. She's watching the people who helped her transition into the league be discarded. And there's only so long you can witness that before asking the obvious. Why would I stay? Caitlin Clark hasn't said anything official, but if she's frustrated, if she's considering her options down the road, no one should be surprised. She's giving the franchise everything: production, poise, presence. But if the franchise can't give her stability in return, she owes them nothing. This isn't a rebuild anymore. It's a test. The Fever are either going to rise to the level of the star they drafted, or they're going to lose her, figuratively or literally. Because if this trend continues, losing key teammates, mishandling contracts, throwing away chemistry, the damage will be irreversible. Not just in the win column, but in identity, in momentum, in value. And right now, that's all on the line. So if you're watching this thinking, what are the Fever even doing? You're not alone. Hit that like button if you see the cracks in this so-called strategy. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the front office have fought to keep Cunningham, or is this all part of a bigger plan gone wrong? And subscribe. We'll be following every move, every misstep, and every piece of this unraveling roster. Stay locked in. This is only getting louder. The Sophie Cunningham situation isn't just about a contract. It's about culture. It's about identity. And it's about whether the Indiana Fever actually understand the gravity of the moment they're in, or whether they're going to let this golden opportunity rot from the inside out. Because Caitlin Clark walking into the WNBA wasn't just a talent upgrade. It was a reset, a cultural shift. It gave the Fever national attention they hadn't seen in years. Overnight, the franchise became the focal point of the league. Suddenly, every game mattered. Every post, every interview, every decision scrutinized. That's what happens when you draft the most marketable player in the country. You don't just inherit her game. You inherit her platform. And right now, that platform is in jeopardy. Letting Sophie Cunningham go wasn't a random cut. It was a calculated move. It was the front office saying, we're going in another direction. And while that may be true in theory, in reality, it reads like mismanagement. Cunningham wasn't just good for chemistry. She was essential to structure. Her ability to stretch the floor with 43% three-point shooting is what created room for Clark to operate. She played selfless basketball. She understood tempo. She held her own defensively. These aren't luxury traits. These are core functions for any team hoping to build around a dominant guard. So when the Fever decided to deprioritize her for cap space or in favor of larger contracts like Natasha Howard's, that sent a message. Chemistry is negotiable. Development is optional. Fit is secondary. And that message isn't just being received by fans. It's being received by Clark. She may not say it out loud, but she knows what's happening. You think she's not paying attention to how her team is being built around her? You think she doesn't understand what it means when a player like Cunningham is allowed to walk during a breakout season for the franchise? Of course she does. She just came from Iowa, a program that built around her with intention, with trust, with consistency. That team understood that in order for Clark to thrive, she needed smart role players, veteran shooters, and structure. That's why she was able to perform the way she did. It wasn't just the freedom, it was the support system. Now she's in Indiana, where the roster is already shifting, veterans are being pushed out, and improving younger players are being elevated without clear direction. The infrastructure that was supposed to lift her up? Crumbling. And let's talk about that infrastructure. Because the Fever don't just have a talent problem now, they have a development one. KK Timpson was expected to grow into a key role. But so far, that growth isn't happening. And when you let your experienced, high IQ veterans leave, you eliminate the people who actually help bring young players along. It's not just about who plays 20 minutes a night. It's about who sets the tone in the locker room, who leads by example in practice, who shows up when the lights are off. Cunningham was that, and now she's gone. So what's left? A half-baked rotation, unstable roles, a franchise player surrounded by inconsistency. And fans are supposed to trust this process? Meanwhile, social media engagement is skyrocketing. The Fever's digital footprint is reportedly worth $55 million, fueled by the star power of Clark, yes, but also by the synergy of the personalities around her. Cunningham had become a recognizable name, not just for her game, but for her connection with fans. Letting her go doesn't just shrink the team's talent pool, it shrinks its marketability. That's what makes this so frustrating. The Fever have one job: build a sustainable, competitive roster around one of the most important players women's basketball has ever seen. That's it. And yet they're overcomplicating it, trading away high-value draft picks, failing to develop depth, letting proven contributors leave without replacements ready. It doesn't feel like a rebuild. It doesn't feel like a win-now plan either. It feels like a franchise that got caught off guard by its own success and now doesn't know what to do with it. And Caitlin Clark? She's stuck in the middle of it. And Caitlin Clark? She's expected to be the leader, the scorer, the passer, the face of the team, the glue. And now, without someone like Cunningham by her side, she's expected to do all that while the support structure erodes around her. This isn't sustainable, and Clark knows it. She may not be saying she's leaving tomorrow, but you better believe this is planting seeds. Because what she's seeing now is a franchise that talks big about the future, but struggles to protect the present. And you don't keep generational talent by making them second-guess your vision. The WNBA is changing. Players are more vocal, more aware, more empowered. Clark has options. She has leverage. And she's got a front-row seat to how this team is choosing to operate. If the Fever keep prioritizing budget flexibility over player retention, potential over chemistry, and upside over proven value, they're not just risking a few losses this season. They're risking Caitlin Clark's loyalty. You think she's going to spend her prime years watching bad decisions pile up? Watching her game get stifled by poor spacing and broken rotations? Watching teammates she trusts get replaced by theoretical upside? Because the moment Clark decides she's had enough, and she will decide if this keeps up, every team in the league will be ready to offer her what the Fever didn't. A plan. A plan that values veterans. A plan that builds real depth. A plan that treats team culture like it matters. A plan that doesn't let a Cunningham walk out just because the spreadsheet said so. And Caitlin Clark. The Fever are already in rare air. They've got one of the most valuable players in professional sports, a national fan base growing by the day, and a digital brand outperforming nearly every other franchise in the league. And somehow, they're still gambling with it. There's no more room for excuses. No more we're figuring it out. No more talk about potential. This is the moment to make real decisions, to double down on what works, and to stop thinking short-term. Because if the Fever keep playing like this off the court, the consequences will be far bigger than losing one veteran guard. They'll lose credibility. They'll lose cohesion. And eventually, they'll lose Clark. And once that happens, you don't recover. So if you've been watching this and wondering if this is all part of some deeper strategy, ask yourself, does this feel like strategy? Or does it feel like panic disguised as planning? Because right now, the Fever aren't building a championship contender. They're testing the patience of the one player who could actually get them there. The Fever aren't just fumbling a roster spot. They're fumbling the future, and it's happening in real time, right in front of us. Sophie Cunningham didn't need to go on a dramatic rant to expose the tension in Indiana. A few calculated comments on her podcast were all it took to peel back the curtain. You could hear it in her tone. She's frustrated, disappointed, but not surprised. Because this isn't a one-off bad decision. It's part of a pattern. One that's slowly making the Fever look like a franchise that wasn't ready for the spotlight Caitlin Clark brought with her. When you sign up for a generational star, you sign up for everything that comes with it. Media, money, expectations, chaos, pressure. It's not just about building a basketball team anymore. It's about building a machine, a brand, a legacy. And if you don't know how to manage the engine, it breaks. Right now, Indiana's engine is stalling. Let's rewind to how they got here. They drafted Caitlin Clark and instantly became the story. Sold-out games, national broadcasts, merch flying off shelves. Their social media valuation skyrocketed to nearly $55 million, fueled by Clark's arrival and her chemistry with players like Cunningham. The team suddenly had a voice, a personality, a direction, and now they're letting it all unravel over contract negotiations and misplaced priorities. Clark is still showing up. She's still doing her part, but the support is collapsing underneath her. Cunningham, arguably the most compatible role player on the team, is about to walk. Not because she underperformed, not because she caused locker room drama, but because the front office decided her presence didn't justify the cost. And let's be clear, that's a cost they could afford. They just chose not to. They're juggling the cap to try and stretch for different aims, prioritizing size over synergy and potential over proven fit. Natasha Howard's deal looms large, and there's buzz around younger players like Lexi Hall and even still developing pieces like KK Timpson. But none of that makes sense if the veterans who actually make the system work are being left behind. Cunningham wasn't just a stat line. She was a stabilizer. The kind of player who doesn't just show up on a highlight reel, but shows up every possession. And in a league where games are often decided by a handful of decisions, those players matter more than anyone wants to admit. Especially when you're building around someone like Caitlin Clark. Clark isn't just a shooter. She's a floor general, a creator, someone who bends defenses and requires movement, spacing, timing. Cunningham gave her all of that. She pulled defenders to the corners, giving Clark room to slice and pass. She rotated seamlessly on defense. She knew when to be invisible and when to cut. You don't teach that. You trust it. And now it's gone. So now Clark's stuck adjusting to new pieces again. She's trying to build rapport with a changing lineup. She's trying to lead while still learning the pace of the WNBA. She's being asked to carry more, not just on the court but off of it, because every decision this front office makes gets traced back to her. She didn't ask for that. But it's what comes with being the face of the franchise. What's worse is that Clark's development depends on the structure around her. Every great star goes through that early stage where the right veterans guide them through the learning curve. Indiana had that in Sophie. Now, they're taking a step backward, and they're doing it while also failing to develop from within. Look at the roster. KK Timpson's stagnation is hard to ignore. Lexi Hall is promising, but not fully ready. There's no bench depth, no clear succession plan, and now, no trusted vet to bridge the gap. That's not how you build a team around a superstar. That's how you exhaust one. Clark needs consistency. She needs players who understand her game, who complement her style, who keep the pressure off when defenses load up. But instead, she's getting turnover. She's getting cap management logic that doesn't line up with chemistry or fit. And the fans? They see it. This isn't some obscure back-end decision that only the stat nerds care about. This is visible. Cunningham was a known name. She was part of the marketing, the interviews, the highlights. She had a connection with fans. People liked her. They trusted her. And now she's on her way out with no real explanation. That's a trust break, not just with players, but with the audience. And that matters more than ever. Because the Fever's rise wasn't just about basketball. It was about storytelling. People bought into Clark. They bought into the team. They bought into the idea that something was being built in Indiana. Something exciting. Something sustainable. This isn't sustainable. You can't build around one player and strip everything else away. That's not a blueprint. That's a burnout plan. If the front office keeps forcing Clark to carry more weight while surrounding her with less help, it's only a matter of time before the frustration sets in. For her, for the fans, for the league. And this league needs Clark. The WNBA is finally getting its long overdue attention. People are watching. Media is covering. Money is flowing. But it all hinges on the product. And right now, the product in Indiana is trending toward chaos. You lose Cunningham today. Who's next? Because once you start letting chemistry walk away, it's hard to get it back. Clark may not be threatening to leave this minute, but the optics are getting worse with every misstep. How long before that quiet frustration turns into public questioning? How long before loyalty becomes reevaluation? Franchises only get one shot at this kind of momentum. If the Fever blow it, someone else will capitalize. Because Clark isn't just valuable to Indiana. She'd be valuable anywhere. And she knows it. So if this team wants to keep her long-term, they need to start acting like they understand what they have. That means investing in fit, in chemistry, in the players who make life easier for Clark, not harder. That means protecting what works, not constantly gambling on what might. Caitlin Clark, because the more this team feels unstable, the more Clark becomes a target. Not just for criticism, but for recruitment. Other franchises see what's happening and trust. They're already dreaming up what Clark would look like in their jersey. Surrounded by shooters, backed by veterans, managed by front offices that know how to balance money with mission. The Fever can't afford to find out what that looks like. So if you're watching this mess unfold and thinking, this isn't how you treat the future of the league, you're absolutely right. Hit that like button if you've seen enough. Drop a comment if you think the Cunningham move is a deal breaker. And subscribe, because this story isn't cooling down anytime soon. The pressure is only rising. And if Indiana doesn't figure out fast, Caitlin Clark might not wait around to be part of the rebuild.